Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast. We fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Carter. I'm here with my co-hosts Mattson Heiner,
better read than dead,
and Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Tell a friend about us. Tell a family member about us. Tell a zombie hunter about us or zombie survival. I don't know. Tell some people involved in the zombie apocalypse about us, especially Brits, and we'll be good to go. But, yeah, we are here. It is October. We are kicking off a weird month, but a fun month. We poor Alec, we tried to save his soul and protect his harmful sensibilities. Last year or earlier this year, we tried to hurt those same sensibilities, and I failed miserably. But
thank you.
Yeah, we I feel like Mattson might get you later this month. But
yeah, Mattson, you're a dick.
But
we're trying to watch party that particular one, so it should make for a good old time. JJ will just be sitting back like easy peasy. Like
that's right.
I'll be watching it like this.
Yeah. And thus would be Mattson's themed background as well. It's Halloween time, so we're kicking off non-scary horror movies for the first three, and then we'll finish up with a doozy of a classic horror film. To
get you properly ramped up for actual Halloween.
Yeah, when is Halloween?
It's a cringer.
Thursday, I believe.
It's a Thursday, so this will come out. That's good. The fourth one will come out right before the Monday before Halloween, so it'll be good. But yeah, we're doing a non-scary, finishing with a scary, leaning into the Halloween theme. It's fun, but we're starting off. If you haven't seen the image there, with Shaun of the Dead. It was released September 24th, 2004. It was written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. It was directed by Edgar Wright. It stars Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Kate Ashfield, Lucy Davis, Dylan Moran, Nicola Cunningham, Keir Mills, Matt Janes, Peter Serafinowicz, Rafe Spell. There's a lot of people in this. Who else was in this movie? Help me out.
Bill Nighy.
Bill Nighy was in it. Who was the mom? Is that... Oh, she's pretty big too. Anyway, it's there's a lot of people in it. I mean, you've got some pretty funny cameos too that we'll talk about, I'm sure. Penelope Wilton, that's who the mom was. I was struggling. But yeah, you get Martin Freeman, and there's a lot of British actors that were in this before they were actually super famous. So we'll talk about them, I'm sure. But yeah, this movie is about I gotta get my synopsis up. The uneventful, aimless lives of a London electronics salesman and his layabout roommate are disrupted by the zombie apocalypse. So yeah,
are they though?
I mean, they can't be lazy anymore. That's for damn sure. But yeah, interesting movie. I remember when this came out. I was in my. I'll stop.
You're old.
I was in my early 20s. You pricks were probably still tweens or whatever the hell.
I was in sixth grade.
Yeah, I probably was in like seventh or eighth, and I heard of it, but I didn't watch it when it came out. But yeah. I knew you guys would be young. That's for sure. But so whose film was this anyway? Like, I forget. Was this an Alec pick?
This is an Alec pick. Duh. British humor. Of course it's an Alec pick.
That's fair.
The only one of mine that got picked was Children of the Corn. Other than that, it's all you and Alec.
Spoilers.
Yeah, that's fair. That's the end one. No, yeah, I mean, it's good. I'll tell you what, though. I went and saw this in the theater because I love Edgar Wright. And I love Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Like, those guys are hilarious to me. So, in fact, they made a list of ours for another month coming up too. So I had seen there was a TV series back in the late 90s, early 2000s that called Spaced that was very British, hard to watch. It's kind of terrible, but it's like imagine hours and hours, I think 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons of this. Only not zombies, but like these people, Simon Pegg, Nick Wright, or Nick Frost. In fact, I think one of the actresses, the one that plays the other version of Simon Pegg's character when you meet the other group, I'm pretty sure she was in Spaced. So anyway, I fell in love with this show because I'm like Alec. I like British humor. It's pretty funny most of the time as long as I'm paying attention to it and it hits right. But so I was like super excited and have been on the Edgar Wright train ever since. And so this was like the first big breakout film for him in the States and across the board. So I giggle at this movie quite a bit, even though it's not, there's like lulls for me. And I like, there's parts where I'm laughing so hard, tears are running down my face. And then there's other parts where I'm like, okay, I'm bored. Let's go. So, but I'm curious as to your, other than British humor, Alec, what made you pick this one?
So the Cornetto Trilogy and I have a love-hate relationship. The first time that I kind of watched this, or Hot Fuzz, or The End of the World, whatever it is, World's End.
World's End.
Yeah. Hated them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then, dating Oshi is what, Oshi's weird. Like, she tries to think she's not, but she's super weird. And the movies that she likes and watches, super weird. But they grew on me, right? So, like, now I'm a huge fan of Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and World's End. Like, I'll watch them just all the time because I cackle.
Yeah.
And it's that, stupid British humor that I love, but it was almost like when I first saw him, I was like refusing to believe in the stupid humor. And just stop at stupid. But I mean, Nick Frost is so good, dude, at being Ed.
Yeah.
And I just love the way that all these films in this trilogy tie together. But it's just like it's the little things, right? Like how long it takes them to figure out they're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Like that's just, it's perfect because you have these two guys who are so absorbed with what they're doing themselves. And then on top of that, you have zombies that don't really look like zombies, right? They look like actual people just going about their daily lives.
Oh, yeah.
And so these guys are just chilling in the zombie apocalypse for the longest time. And so it's little things like that that just get me going and cracking up because it's so unrealistic, but at the same time, we're kind of living in our own type of zombie apocalypse currently. So it's also kind of like a, satirical, and I love a good satire.
Fair enough. All right, I'm curious, Mattson, I'm assuming you had never seen Shaun of the Dead prior to this.
No, I'd seen part of it on like TV, but I'd never seen the whole thing. No, I was aware of like the premise and knew it was British humor. I mean, I've seen Hot Fuzz, so I was like, oh, I know that this is like, I knew what I was walking into, but obviously didn't know the whole story. But I mean, I could surmise like how this would probably go. For me, I think it resonated with something you said earlier, Jay, that this movie's funny. Like, don't get me wrong. I laughed. I enjoyed a lot of the humor, but I also have to say this movie is also really slow at some parts that it definitely does. Like, you're sitting there and you're like, all right, like, okay, can I get to another joke? Because when it's funny, it's funny. Like, enjoyable. I like the premise of what Alec talked about the beginning of showing the life and showing the people, and then as you start to see, you be like, oh, there's that truck that I just saw in the news station. Oh, that person just crashed and their head fell off. He didn't see, like all those little things, like almost like Easter eggs in a sense, and kind of chuckle, and you're like, oh, he's finally going to the convenience store. Didn't see the red handprint. Is he finally going to realize there's a zombie? And that whole progression was funny to me, but there's just some other parts that I I wanted them to speed up. So it was kind of that give and take for me that I kind of had that constant battle in watching this. Just trying to get through the lulls to get to the highs because, man, it was funny.
Mm-hmm. I will say that there's a couple parts that I look forward to in this film, and the whole first probably 20-30 minutes of this movie is some of my favorite humor, to the point of when they're walking through their lives and there's zombies behind them and around them all the time and they just don't notice it. Like, I don't know. I can't explain to you why I find that funny, but fuck all, I find it funny. And then, like, it's the dumbest thing that finally triggers them to realize what's going on. The girl in the garden, like, just like Nick Frost.
Big old hole.
Yeah, so there's a girl in the garden, and like they think she's trying to like make out with them when she's trying, you know what I mean? And so he pushes, and then finally they're like, okay, you know. But then I think the only thing that I miss, or that I think that they missed, is an opportunity for them to have like this flashback moment of how many zombies they missed, right? Like, to me, that would have been like peak shit if they just would have gone back and gone like, and I think once they get to the bar, it would have been great, right? They're sitting there in silence, and all of a sudden, you know, Simon Pegg's character's like, Shaun's like, holy shit. And then like it replays all the zombies that he met. Like, I think to me that would have been funny as fuck. But it's just one of those things where it cracks me up.
I resonate with you, and I think the more we talk about it, this movie, I think you said it best, Jay, for me, having watched it all the way through for the first time, the first 20 to 30 minutes was pretty much gold. Like, they'd done it right. I really liked everything about it, and that part I would watch again. But then after that, like the middle, especially the end, it just got less funny to me, and to the point where I was like, you're definitely supposed to die here, like, and you would die, and then all of a sudden the truck does come save, but it didn't. I don't know, it was so disjointed at the end. I was almost just like, oh, that's how we're doing this? Like, what?
British cinema at its finest.
Yeah, like they definitely
real hot start.
to me, it really started to trip up, and that's when it started to get really long. A lot of the bar scenes, especially, is like, I'm kind of done being in here. Like, this is all we have to offer now. Like, they really limited their possibilities of comedy at that point, and it wasn't really funny to me anymore. And then it tried to be kind of wholesome. I was like, but that's not what you presented to me. Like, this isn't what I wanted this movie to be, but now it kind of is. And I don't really care about the character arcs of this supposed love story. I like that it wasn't working and it was awkward, and now we're safe. Like, it was just all those things at the end. It left a sour taste in my mouth at the end, because the beginning was so unique, and the camera angles and the suspense they tried to throw in, like kind of making fun of it. And then it just kind of wasn't funny anymore at the end, because it was too in your face. I was like, I don't know if we know what we're trying to do now.
My biggest gripe comes when Shaun can run through a horde of zombies.
Yeah.
That too. I'm like,
I feel like you could make it happen, right? And have some fun with it. Have him like get out and then show up like Bill Murray status from Zombieland as a, dressed as a zombie. But you go through this whole thing where it feels like the writers and director just kind of backed themselves into a corner. And we're like, okay, well, we need A and B to happen, so here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah,
because that's where I'm going. Okay, like you could find some way to kind of trick it out, or movie magic it in some way, shape, or form, that you could still keep that funny humor aspect to it. But yeah, like Mattson was saying, you kind of go serious, and then you throw in something like that, and I'm like, I feel like there's a better way to do this.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because I think that they just messed it up. Because I think they were trying, it was supposed to be a funny moment, what you're talking about, like where he's the only one that can run through them, and they don't touch him or whatever. And it's supposed to be funny because comparatively it makes no sense. But I think what they should have done is had him be like this super badass, where he's like, gets a hold of something and he's beating the shit out of all these zombies and cuts a path and then gets through them. And then when you get back into the bar and he's got the gun and he can't hit shit, that would have just upped the funny, right? Like, we've seen this dude go on this massacre of zombies getting out of the bar and trying to save everybody, and then he can't hit anything from point blank range with a fucking gun. To me, that would have been hilarious. And I get what they were trying to do, but I'm with you. It misses. I'm like, okay, whatever. But there's so many of these silly moments that they talk about where it's like something doesn't fit within the world of zombie and it's trying to be funny, but it misses in that moment. But if they just did one little tweak to a next scene or a previous scene, it could have really landed well. But again, British humor, that they're very good at the misses and they're not very good at endings. So it's like,
Yeah.
It's
Well, the whole
100% true.
yeah.
the whole tension with what was the other male actor's name in the girlfriend's boyfriend that liked what was his name?
David, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that whole like the tension at the end and like him getting out the window and all that, like, and they were arguing before then. I don't know. I just wanted them to go back to the satirical and the funny, and they could have played on a lot of that more. It's almost like if you could have had them when he what was the main character's name? I'm blanking on his name.
Shaun?
Yeah, Shaun. Stupid me. Shaun.
Right there on the screen.
I know.
Mattson.
Like as JJ talked about Shaun like running through them, like almost if he was like pranking the zombies himself and making light of it and fun of it, like they could have leaned in a lot of that so much more. Because the very end of this film, when they show Shaun with Ed and they're sitting down and playing video games, like that's just so funny again. And I liked what they were doing on the television of all these like zombies playing game, all the stuff they showed.
They turned it.
That was great. And
Yeah.
I think if they had taken a lot of that and applied it again to how they started showing the zombie apocalypse and kept it funnier like that, and they certainly could have, I think it would have just played the theme throughout. But it just feels like they had it, they lost it for a solid chunk, and then they gave us like a slight bit at the end. I was like, oh man, like I would have watched 5 more minutes of you hanging out with Ed probably, but okay. Didn't know that that's what gardening meant. I was like not expecting that.
I'm gonna go ahead and hang out in the garden.
Dude, could you imagine if they combined it so that Shaun is the one who kind of figured out how to use zombies for entertainment, and he did it in the escape the bar scene?
That would have been, yeah.
Would have been really funny.
That would have been good.
Like he's the new world billionaire because he figured out how to create zombie entertainment.
That's great. I do completely agree with you though, Mattson. Like when he when Ed leans over to bite him and he's like Shaun or like Ed and he pushes him over like, and then he's like one hand pushing the remote. Like, oh dude. That's funny.
It was like I was like, oh, they found it again. Like this is good. That last little bit, and I was like, where was it? Where'd it go? I like that's what because this movie, like honestly, think about the first 20, 30 minutes. I was like, this is unique. Like they're doing these weird camera angles. Like I haven't seen London like this. I'm liking the London humor, the vibe. Like it had it. It was all there. And like the whole Shaun needing to step up to be a real boyfriend. Like who can't resonate with that? Like that just was funny. I was like, oh, like half of the world has been in this circumstance or like
oh yeah.
Like all, and I was like, oh, the subject matter of like having somewhat of a real serious thing that they're making funny and throwing the zombie beginnings in the background. I was like, man, like I haven't seen anything quite like this. And then even replaying the same scenes essentially as it's happening, I was like, this should be dumb and boring, but it's funny because I'm looking for what's different. And they had you. I was like, it's probably some filming technique that I should be able to name that they do that. It felt like something Hitchcock would do. But I was like, this is great. It was funny. It was fresh. It was different. And that's obviously it kicked off kind of this era a little bit. But man, I just got I was watching with Tay and she's like, this is kind of boring. And in the middle, I was like, well, it was fun because we were laughing. I was like, I don't know where it went. And I didn't know what to tell her. And I was like, oh, it got funny at the end, but like went somewhere.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah. I mean, as a British comedy fan, it's in a British cinema most of the time, like they're not just comedy, but especially British comedy. When they land it amazingly. But there's so many times that as an American, there are things that I don't find funny in British comedy. And sometimes it may be inside jokes. Like there's one line that isn't funny, but unless you think of it from a perspective of an American, when they're in the bar and he's like, hurry, kill the queen. And like, as a Brit, that's probably hysterical, right? Like it'd be like, shoot the president. Like, you know what I mean? But now it's like, I watch it and I'm like, okay, now I get it. And it's funny. But at first I was like, what? Why is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you miss it in that instant. And it's only funny for that instant, right? But then they really, the weird, like sardonic, just goofy comedy doesn't catch all the time. And when it doesn't, shit gets boring. And then, to your point, their endings, they try to be clever with their endings a lot of times, or they try to twist it like this one and have it be wholesome and like, hey, all's well that ends well, even though your whole family and all of your friends just got eaten by zombies. But you got the girl. Yeah, you got the girl and everything's okay. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things.
Well, that whole other scene, like the alley scene where they came across that other group, what was that all about? Like, I felt like that was supposed to be something bigger than what I took it for, because obviously we saw that girl at the end with the troops, but I don't know. I felt like, is this supposed to be like a doppelganger? It basically wasn't like a doppelganger thing. Am I thinking of the right? Because they all looked like each other, but they were different. But I was like,
stunt doubles.
Yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, I think that's what they're going for, but it also felt like very forced, and I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know. I just remember that scene, and it was kind of weird and random at the same time, because it felt that girl's character just felt forced because she showed up at the end, like with the truck, and I was like, did they need to show her then to show that she could come back at the end? I don't know.
Well, it's the mirror effect. So what they were doing is showing, because they all look alike.
Yeah.
And they're all lined up in the same order. She's the Shaun of their group, and they're like, each one is matched up and have the same so it's like, again, it's a very British type thing to where
straight up.
Yeah, it's straight up like, oh, that's funny. They just ran into themselves like as they're going. And then you get to the end and like that little twist, the reason she shows up is to show that she's the same as Shaun, but a little different because her boyfriend didn't make it. So it's like there's that tie together that I'm trying to think of a parallel to what we do in the States that is a similar comedic tool, but that's all that was like this really fun, like to them, really funny. Oh, that's cute. There's
Zombieland 2, Mattson.
Yeah. Fair.
That's exactly what it is.
That's fair. Because they do that. Don't they? Yeah, it's fair. They do that exact thing in Zombieland 2. Probably as a reference to this movie, if I'm being honest.
I would bet.
Yeah. I forgot all about that they do that exact thing. That's funny. Yeah. Listen, the other thing I want to talk about is with this movie is the dialogue is some of the funny, and it goes back to, I don't know how many movies you guys have watched that have Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Edgar Wright as the writers. Oh my God. But I'm with you, Alec, like, to be honest, I don't recommend this movie to most people, if very many at all, and that is The World's End, because it is not what you think it is, similar to this one. But it's funny because the World's End, and then that stupid ass Jonah Hill, whatever, the one where the world actually ends at World's End or some shit like that. They came out. Go ahead.
This is the end.
This is the end. They came out almost at the same exact time frame. And I've said a million times, I'm very rarely a huge fan of half the cast in This Is the End, but I'm a huge fan of everyone in The World's End. And I went into The World's End not fully, like, I knew because I'd seen Shaun of the Dead and I'd seen Hot Fuzz. And so I was like, okay, I should know what I'm walking into. And then I got to The World's End and I went, I was not fucking expecting this at all. And so I don't recommend it, but like that movie to me, if you're going down to it, and this movie has some of those pieces to it, and so does Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is my least favorite of the trilogy, but if like that writing, and to me, The World's End is when I talk about great writing for a movie, that one always comes into the conversation for me, because the dialogue in it up until the end, which is really fucking weird, is some of the greatest ever done. And this one has pieces of that. Like the whole conversation, the whole fight between Shaun and Ed and their flatmate, the guy that owns the joint, like that they live with. Like every time those three are on screen together, and then when he becomes a zombie, the little digs that they're still taking at his ass, like and the fact that he's the one guy that they call his name and he looks at him like Pete, and he looks right at him before he shoots him in the dome. Like it's just fucking great. So I no matter how fucking weird the shit gets, if Simon Pegg wrote it, if Edgar Wright wrote it, or if any combination of Nick Frost, Simon Pegg, and Edgar Wright are involved, I will watch it, because even if it's a shit movie, because like I said, I don't love Hot Fuzz, but there are moments of brilliance even in that one, especially from a dialogue perspective. Like the writing, some of the best I've ever watched is with that trio. Love it. And this is no exception. Like there's the whole exchange with Bill Nye as Philip, and like right before he turns into a zombie, like where they hate each other. He's not my dad, but he's like, I always like that, just that moment of like tenderness where he's like, I just wanted you to be a man. And like, fucking, I love it because it's so inappropriate and mistimed, and yet perfectly timed from a perspective of this dude knows he's dying. And so he's trying to make this kid feel better. And then not 5 minutes before, like he was going to kill him before he was even a zombie. And it just some genius ass writing. And the way that they carry pieces of dialogue through an entire movie and make it make sense, I love it. And I will give them all the credit in the world for almost any movie they're in because of it.
Amen.
Yep. Sorry, that was my diatribe that I knew I had to get in before we were done with this one.
The line that was not in the original script is, "You've got red on you." Very much improvised. I think it probably got said a couple times, and they're like, "Oh, let's just keep running with this and just say it," because they said it like 3 or 4 times by the end. But I love the working scene where he's at the appliance shop and like the whole age difference, and like I don't blend my personal life and work, and like the phone and all, like that part made me laugh. I was like, oh, like, and he's 28. And he does. Sorry, Simon Pegg did not look 28 in this. I was like,
no,
it's an old 28-year-old right there. Like, that's what they always like. I just don't sometimes get with movies. I'm like, you could have just said he was 35, like closer to his age, and it would have been funny still, because this is clearly an old guy doing a young man's job. And at least the age you would have said to me would have felt more realistic than saying he is 20. Movies do that all the time, though, like all the time. And I'm like, it's okay to say they're a little older. I'm fine with it. But I don't understand why they always do that. They really always do.
Yeah. I don't know either. The obsession with the younger people, I guess, maybe is.
That's the whole point of this movie. If he was 35, maybe it could have been even. I was like, dude, what are you doing with your life? Like, dude's 17. Also, the 17-year-old didn't look 17, but I can forgive that a little bit. I know it's always harder to find someone that looks that actual age that's good enough to act in the film sometimes. But
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that on purpose. Like, you guys know that it's floated around before, like a picture or meme or whatever, where it's like some guy who just looks like shit, and they're like, yeah, working night shift is great, Zach 25, and it just something along those lines.
That's fair.
I would almost wonder if it was personal, like a choice to be like, hey, let's just do this because he shouldn't, he's 28 going on 60.
Also fair.
Because I feel like that would be a very British thing to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
JJ, I've got I'm curious how deep lore trivia this will be. There's a Star Wars connection in this film. Which character or actor, I should say, in this film voiced Darth Maul in Episode 1?
Darth Maul?
Yeah.
He has speaking lines?
He has one in Episode 1. It's time for us to reveal ourselves to the Sith. Finally, we can reveal ourselves to the Jedi or whatever it was. He had the voice? Yeah. I don't know. I know Simon Pegg's connection. He's done voice for Star Wars, and he was also in The Force Awakens, but I don't know who it was that voiced
it Maul. Was I'm gonna say his last name wrong, is Peter Serafinowicz, if I'm saying that correctly, the guy who played Pete.
Who's Pete?
I did not. Yep, there it is. I did not know, and I knew The guy that played Maul, like that with the actual actor, didn't voice him. I knew that, but I didn't know that Peter Serafinowicz was.
That's so funny that
did it.
Yeah, Maul had. I mean, we're getting real off topic here. Maul had one line, and it's like the dude that just physically played Maul. It's like we don't think he couldn't have learned that one line, like maybe just like a day of line coaching or something.
Yeah, I don't know because the actor, he has a very different voice. The guy that physically played him.
I guess if you had like a high nasally voice, it just wouldn't fit for
Well, and he doesn't have a high nasally voice. He just has a strange. He also has a strange accent to him that might have been because Ray Park is who was the physical.
Darth Maul is a strange being. So I mean, you could have said, well. So I mean, I get if the dude sounded like Jar Jar Binks and that was coming out of Darth Maul's mouth, I'd be like, all right, we probably should change that.
So here's it: when Ray Park is Scottish, and so
I feel like that would have been.
Might be real hard. Oh, it's come time for us to reveal ourselves to the Jedi. You know what I mean? Like it might have been a little rough.
That would have been perfect.
And at the time, he was still pretty young. So
my gosh, that shiz would have been. Dude, we need to do Star Wars AI right now and have them remake that scene with Darth Maul speaking. The funny thing is, you could do that shiz right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, he had only been acting for like 2 years when he did that part, so I don't know that he figured out how to get rid of
one of
that
our
actor.
listeners, make that happen. Do the stuff and send us that scene. Holy shiz, that would be funny.
Yeah, hilarious. No, I'll tell you the other thing about Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost. Those guys in their movies, they get big people, like, and they may not be super famous at the time, like. I'm pretty sure Rosamund Pike, who was in The World's End, wasn't huge until just after The World's End. And I know, like from this one, like there was a couple. I mean, Bill Nye was always pretty big, and so was the mom. I don't know why I'm struggling with that actress's name today, but like Martin Freeman was a nobody at the time this came out, and he played he was in one of the mirror groups, and then so I mean, there's like some serious. They pull some serious people into these movies that you'll see after these movies. Then it's not that they do anything fantastic. It's not like these are like breakout roles. They're just get them in the map, get them on something that's connected to somebody that is huge. Because Edgar Wright's become one of those names that when someone says it's directed by Edgar Wright, like people pay attention. Like, I mean, we did a movie. What's that one that we did that I think you were already moved out. But me and Ian and Javier went and watched it, and Javier was pissed at my ass. Oh gosh, Soho.
Last Night in Soho.
Last Night in Soho was an Edgar Wright film.
I watched that.
Were you at the theater with us? When we
no, I wasn't at the theater though. But
gotcha.
I remember that.
Yeah, you were part of that. You were in it. Yeah. So that's one of his movies, and then Baby Driver he directed Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So like. There's a lot of movies that he was a part of that people are like, this is a great movie. So when he does it, I mean, this is what launched his career in the States, at least, was Shaun of the Dead. So, yeah. So anyway, they do a good job. But yeah, I did not know that Peter Serafinowicz did that voice. At last, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. That's funny.
Deep cut.
Very deep cut. But I did know Simon Pegg, on the Star Wars, he was the big ugly guy that Rey in the Force
Awakens.
The Force Awakens, he was like that guy on Car Plot. But the bigger one before that, he voiced a character called Dengar in the Clone Wars. So he's been pretty involved in the Star Wars universe as well. But cool. Should we rate this thing?
Let's do it.
All right, Alec. You're up.
Movie, you get to go first. So I still love this movie. But I mean that the end. This is a bad end, even for like British cinema bad ends. Like it is up there. So I think I'm gonna go 3.5. But I will watch this anytime, anywhere. It's just funny. I might turn it off after about 45 minutes, but that's neither here or there. I love this movie, so I'll continue to watch it. 3.5 for me.
Nice. Alec, or Jesus.
All right, well. Okay, so I love this movie.
Go again. I didn't like your fucking score. Bitch.
I'll go. I'm gonna give it
Mattson.
I'm gonna give it a 2.5. I mean, to Alec's point, like if you're gonna say you're gonna turn a movie off after 45 minutes, like it's hard to give it a great rating, but it starts so strong. I've already said all the things. It's funny. If you've never seen it, should you watch it? Yeah, it's a good watch. I think for the Halloween time of year, looking for something to easy win to the rest of the more like actual scary movies that Alec won't be watching.
Nope.
It's a good start. Good start. But it like we talked about, there's times it feels slow. It's definitely, it kind of loses its identity. But at the same time, it's so iconic, I would say, for the first kind of, I don't know, 30-ish minutes. And I mean, the level of acting and the banter back and forth, I think it's deserved to be seen, but it definitely falls off a cliff. And if it didn't, I think this would be one of the probably better comedies like out there. It just lost itself.
Yep. I'm gonna give it a 3. I think this movie is better as clips. Like, I'd be interested. I've never looked, and now I think I'm gonna have to. Is like if someone took you on YouTube and clipped all the funny shit
like
together,
edit it, like re-edit in a set. Yeah, that could work really well.
Yeah, because I think as like once you've established what the film is about, then you can take the funny bits and still follow the movie, right? You don't have to see all the in between and the slower pieces. So I'm really curious if someone did that, because I do think that this movie stands alone better as clipped together portions of funny once you've established it. You get past the first 30 minutes and it's really about taking the funny bits and putting them together. I think you can make an hour-long deal that I'd cackle for hours about watching, because
there's a challenge. There's a challenge with some editors out there. That's actually that could work well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of movies that could be done that way, but this is certainly one of them, especially from a comedic perspective. Like, I think you could really piece together a lot of funny.
JJ, I think we just found our new business model. We got to take AI and apply this and make it happen. Hell yeah, we just got to get through a mountain of copy. Or like,
I was going to say, good luck getting through the copyright issues.
Let's get sued by every movie studio out there. Got to move to China.
And you couldn't put shit on YouTube because that shit would get blacked out and demonetized. And so anyway, but anyway, I like it. I'm going to give it a 3. I'll watch it pretty much anytime, especially certain pieces of it. I'll be honest, after the first time I watched it, this is only the second time I've watched this movie in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces and clips of it. That's what made me think of it. Because, there's parts that I'm like, hey, it's Shaun of the Dead. I love this part. You know what I mean? But then there's like, I've never sat down and watched it from front to back since I watched it originally back in 2004. So that tells you how much I enjoy it as a front to back movie. But
having just done it myself, I can see why. Like,
yeah.
I mean, Alec, I guess you got the nostalgia or something, but it'd be real hard for me to turn around and watch this again at some point. I'd have to do what JJ was talking about. Are you really?
Oh, she missed my watch through because she's.
Oh gosh!
So we're watching it again.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, so there it is. Shaun of the Dead is a good way to kick off the month of not so scary movies for the most part, and then keep Alec happy and part of the podcast and not wanting to murder me in my sleep the next time
I'm one of those people where if I'm not winning, I just take my ball and go home.
That's fair. He gets his cricket bat and smacks you in the head with it. All right, Alec, tell everybody where they can find us when they're not watching us in our scary movie films.
Happy to, JJ. So like JJ said, thank you for tuning in to week 1 of October and our not so scary films, Shaun of the Dead. This addition or start to the Cornetto film trilogy is pretty much peak British humor. Does not get much better than this. What did you think of our verdict? Let us know in the comments if you agree, or don't comment if you don't agree. That's fine too. If you want to be more involved with the podcast, a place to be involved is Patreon. Thank you to our current patrons, Richard, Mel Brooks, and the Peak Mail Form for making the selection for this month. And, great hot start to the month so far. With that, I will kick it back to the Sultan of SWAT, the King of Crash, a JJ.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Alec. Yeah, we appreciate our patrons. They're always fun to hang out with and make us do painful and not so painful things. I know there's a painful one coming down my line.
AJ's got a painful one coming his way.
Yeah, it's already fucking on the page, and I'm pissed. Anyway, I knew it was coming. Yeah. So with that, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Wait.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Send magic out.
Jeez, you forgot your line, Mattson.
I was distracted on this other screen.